50-plus minutes, we've got former Minnesota Governor Jesse Ventura on the broadcast. And I have been very close to this case in the last 2+ years between Jesse Ventura and Chris Kyle, both Navy SEALs. Because I was the guy that ended up getting a hold of Jesse through Tyrell and was the one that told him what had been said on Opie and Anthony and then Fox News. And he was just shell-shocked. I was there on audio Skype with him and his wife, and I've known him for years, about 9 years. We've become friends. He's come down and visited me in Austin. I've traveled around the country with him. I know he's a real guy. Doesn't even mean I agree with all his politics. He doesn't agree with all of mine. But we're both real guys. And then I looked into Chris Kyle. God rest his soul, and I'm sorry for his wife. And we're going to go to Ventura to give you the rest of the story. But I sat here when he was in a 3M tournament last week and couldn't really respond because he'd committed to be part of that, and watched the media hit piece the next phase. First, I get calls saying Jesse Ventura got in an argument with a cop, almost got arrested, speeding to an airport in L.A. I call him up in Minnesota, and because I got his home number, and I said, Governor, they just said last night you were in L.A. flying. You don't fly. He goes, no, not for over a year, Alex, as you know. What are you talking about? I said, well, they claim you're running around doing this. It was all over national news. He went, that's crazy. I'm on record. I'm here. I was doing business yesterday. I played golf. Let me come on your show. Remember that? So that didn't work. There was all this other weird stuff going on. And then right as he had been on the show about a week before, he was driving into Mexico in his RV to go to Baja, where he spends part of the year when it's below zero in Minnesota. Just giving you a background story, then we're going to him. Because he'll never really defend himself. I guess he defended himself with the trial. We'll get the inside baseball on that. But I watched it. As a media analyst, I know how these tricks work. So I couldn't get a hold of him for 3 days because they don't have a cell phone that works in Mexico. As they announce, perfect timing, that he was saying, I'm glad the SEALs are dead, and he got knocked out, and all this made-up stuff, which would have come out in the news at the time if it was true. So I call him, get a hold of him. At first he goes, come on, Alex, you never joke around. I don't appreciate this. No, they're really saying that. What? And I'm not going to go into what he privately said, but it really hit him hard. And I'd seen him meet veterans in airports and stuff with their arms and legs blown off and get tears in his eyes, saying, that's why I'm against these wars. And then they don't take care of you. Of course, his dad was in World War II, won a bunch of Bronze Stars. His mom was in World War II, where my grandfather was at in North Africa. So he really cares about our military. But again, they could do this to anybody. They've tried to destroy me before with some similar dirty tricks, but not as concerted. And we caught them quickly, so they backfired. So then he sues Kyle, because Kyle won't back down. He said, just say it isn't true, admit the truth, I'll back off. But Ventura started seeing his movie offers and TV offers get cut back. It really defamed him. People said, what are you doing having a guy on the air? I could have testified, but they didn't ask me. What are you doing having that guy on? He's glad the Navy SEALs are dead. So it was a PSYOP written by News Corps. They have an insurance policy when they lose a suit. It's called omissions insurance is what they call it. We've bought it before when I have been involved in big films and things because, you've always got to be careful. We've bought it before I'm not going to get into it. You can buy it from Lloyd's of London or anywhere. And so that's a lie that he's suing his wife, okay? He sued the man who was alive who then mysteriously died up there at that shooting range, and that's very mysterious. And so then he wins the lawsuit, and I see the Minnesota newspapers with nothing about him winning. It's all about the trial and what had been said by Kyle about him. Fox News, CNN, MSNBC, all did the same thing against Ventura. And I'm going to him, but I just want to defend him here because I haven't done this yet. And I've done it some, but I wanted to do it with him here so he could respond, to spur him to tell the story that he knows. Because he just says, oh, it's sea story, sailor stories, not true, hurt my reputation, I had to, get the truth out, my name. Nobody's a winner. Well, the truth's a winner because he knew what was going to happen. But Fox was all, yeah, after the guy knocked him out, and after he was glad the SEALs were dead, everybody knows Ventura says that. I watched Fox and Friends say this. Everybody knows Ventura says this all the time. He's glad troops are dead. Then they didn't show a clip. Just like MSNBC says I'm deeply racist, doesn't show a clip. They just said, oh, everybody knows Ventura, says this all the time. And yeah, he got mad at Kyle, so he sued the ladies, his wife, the widow, and now has taken everything she's got. None of that's true, folks. Ventura now joins us. I'm going to shut up and give him the floor. We're going to skip this network break coming up to gain back the time. Thanks for giving us the hour, Governor. Thanks for telling the truth, and thanks for standing up for everybody, because I admire the fact that they tried to destroy you and defame you. You stayed the course. You made the judicial system work with the jury, and the system cannot stand it. They cannot stand it. Go ahead.
Well, it was an exhausting couple of weeks, Alex, sitting in that courtroom and seeing their only defense was to attack me personally because they had no evidence. All of their witnesses, they promised the jury they were going to parade 11 witnesses up there who saw the event. The only one that it turned out saw the event, I think 11 or 12 times we impeached his testimony, and he really perjured himself between his deposition and what he said on the stand. So he had no credibility. But they promised that there'd be 11 witnesses up there that would verify Chris Kyle's story. They produced zero of actual evidence. Now, they produced people up there that, the old baffle with BS stuff, plenty of that. And they went after me personally. Can you believe this? They actually took conspiracy theory, which is entertainment. It's my job. I'm doing a show. And they actually used that as their evidence.
Amazing.
In the trial. I mean, how could anyone, that's a TV show that happened to deal with investigating conspiracies. It's reality television, but it's by no means a documentary. All we did was put out the information, and you as a viewer can decipher it and decide on your own if you want to believe it, if you think there's meat on the bone, or, if you think it's all BS. You can take whatever.
In fact, a lot of times you'd end up, thinking what you were covering. I mean, you would go out and investigate to see if it was true or not.
Sure. And it's interesting because it's a niche market. There's a lot of people that love conspiracies. So why wouldn't you do a show about that? And they tried to use that as evidence and all this other stuff. And, I came in with solid witnesses who had been with me. Get this. In the end, it turned out their witnesses had the assault taking place in, I think, 5 or 6 different locations. No two matched up. Not even 2 matched up in the location where they alleged it took place. They had me there. There was a rental car receipt which they produced that showed that I arrived at 7:29 and rented my car in San Diego, which means I couldn't even have got to McPee's no sooner than 8:30 in the evening. They had witnesses there that testified they saw me there at 5 in the afternoon in a Hawaiian shirt with flip-flops and shorts on.
And they also said, from what I read, that you were drunk. Everyone knows you haven't had any alcohol for decades, and I've been with you.
Well, no, Alex, Kyle himself, they didn't really, that's wrong.
The media was saying that.
The media reported that wrongly then because their testimony, they all testified that no, they didn't see me drinking at all. But they tried to downplay their drinking, and their drinking was immense that night, as I knew it would be. Let me state this. The Navy SEALs that testified against me on the stand, they did exactly how they're trained to do. They did. Because we have a T-shirt, which I submitted as evidence, that's a Navy SEAL slogan. It says on the back of the T-shirt, admit nothing, deny everything, and make counter-accusations. Because that's how you're trained in the Navy SEALs. And they followed it to a T. They admitted nothing, they denied everything, and they made counter-accusations. Exactly how they're trained. So, that didn't shock me, but it did wrench my heart because I learned how much they all hate me, and I didn't do anything. And that's the part where I can never win, is the fact there's a whole generation now. I can't call them SEAL brothers because when I went through, they weren't even born yet. So I guess I would refer to them as my SEAL sons. I have a whole generation of SEAL sons now who hate my guts. and I didn't do anything.
Well, they also spun in the media like you started all this when Chris Kyle's the one that wrote the book with News Corps and ran around making all this stuff up.
Well, you know, Mr. Kyle wrote the book, and the book is wrong. HarperCollins has now agreed that any more printings of that chapter will be removed. Yet they said they were standing by Kyle 100%. Well, then why are they removing the chapter now? To cover their butts. You know, but it's a shame it got there, because I want people to know that, and here's another thing they need to know. They always have a lot of these, settlement ordered conferences that the judge orders with a judge presiding. And I can tell you this, never once would they move 1 inch on restoring my reputation or admit the story was fabricated. They took that off the table right at the start. I told them that was the reason I was suing. All they would offer me was money. They told me that. They said, nope, it's the only thing we'll discuss is money. Now, they did make me a money offer to go away, but I refused because my thing was the truth. I did not want my name tarnished at the level that it had been tarnished and hurt, and I'll never get it fully restored. It's impossible now. But the point is, I wouldn't be bought off. So I risked going to trial, and according to what I'm reading, is that I was the major underdog on this thing because, you know, defamation has a very high level at the federal level.
Yes.
And let me tell your listeners this. On the Internet, there's the National Review Online, and an A.J. Delgado, and she's a lawyer and a conservative, wrote a phenomenal piece called Justice for Jesse. Ventura was right in his lawsuit. I would encourage all your listeners to go and get this and read it.
We'll put it on screen right now, and I'll read some passages from it. Justice for Jesse. Ventura was right in his lawsuit, National Review. Well, look, bottom line, it was a psyop, and if they can do this to you, Jesse Ventura, they can do it to Ron Paul, Alex Jones, Matt Drudge, anybody.
You know, Alex, you're deeper than I won't go as far to say it was a psyop. I don't know. But a lot of things don't add up, and the fact that they would not move an inch, they forced me. I had no choice but to go to trial, because if I didn't go to trial, it would have been in a movie. Well, here, get this, Alex. Their lawyer says to me, and he thinks he's going to nail me on my insignificance. Wait till you hear this. He says, Mr. Ventura, would it surprise you to know that in the first draft of the screenplay that you're not in it? And what happened to you is not in it. And he was doing that to get the jury to believe that that's how irrelevant I was to the monetary of this book. And my response from the stand, I looked at him and said, no, it doesn't surprise me at all, because we've already sent Warner Brothers 2 letters telling them that if it is indeed in the film, they will be next to be sued. And I said, I've worked in Hollywood. Warner Brothers doesn't traditionally like to step into lawsuits. So I said, it doesn't surprise me a bit that it's not there. I said, it better not be there.
And for those that don't know,
sued to stop it from being there.
Sure, for those that don't know, Clint Eastwood is making that movie. And again, I mean, imagine they put you in the middle of this. They sandwich you in there. And Governor, I mean, look at all the hacking scandals and the rest of it with News Corps and their imprint that put this book out. And then Chris Kyle gets mysteriously killed. And there's guys in craft hats and the same pants and everything running security in Boston. I'm not saying they were involved, not even saying it's Kraft, but it's the same uniform as people wore. And then he ends up getting killed. We know they use SEALs for major psyops now. I've had high-level spy masters on, like Steve Pachenik, saying it's wrong to use the SEALs for this type of PR. I mean, what about the story saying you got in trouble in Los Angeles or got in trouble, at the airport? I mean, it's all just made up.
Well, that's been going on, and I'm not poo-pooing it, Alex, but believe it or not, that's been going on whenever you're a public figure. I mean, I'll give you an example. Borger, the lawyer that I went against, this isn't my first encounter with him. Decades ago, it's a fun story. Decades ago, I was involved in what was called the smoke-free generation. It was way back in like the early 90s, and we were trying to encourage a generation to get rid of, to not use tobacco, don't smoke, the smoke-free generation. Well, I don't smoke, but I did use Copenhagen. I was a chewer. And I felt that the kids needed to know that chewing is not a safe alternative, that chewing is, if not more dangerous, it's certainly just as dangerous. Ask Tony Gwynn. Well, you can't anymore because Tony unfortunately died from his use of chewing tobacco, the great baseball player from San Diego. But anyway, I was involved in the smoke-free generation, and Borger is also the lawyer for the Star Tribune newspaper. And they had a columnist named CJ, and she wrote this front-page article, maybe we should call him Jesse the Butt, where she accused me of being at the Smoke-Free Target Center. I was smoking a cigarette, and that I gave people a hard time and then mashed it out in the carpeted floor. Well, it turned out that night I was in Cannon Falls, Minnesota at a horse show with my wife. Hundreds of people saw me there. Even the security at the Target Center knew I was not there. They knew me well from my days of wrestling. Well, then we had this is Borger now, the same lawyer that represented Chris Kyle. I had this run-in with him before, years earlier, on this slander thing. Well, I didn't sue because they did an investigation. They found out the same thing. It was true. I was not there. It never happened. The same as this story. It never happened. And, of course, they printed a full retraction in the Minneapolis paper, and I asked them to make a donation to Make-A-Wish, for what they did, and they refused. They would not even donate $100 to Make-A-Wish for kids. Because I felt, you ought to pay a little penalty here, make a donation to charity. And they wouldn't. All they would do by law is write an equal retraction. Well, John Borger was the same lawyer who Chris Kyle had.
Incredible. I want to hear more about inside the trial and then get into news issues and get your take on it. But the reason I've defended you is I believe you. I could see that it was a hit piece, whether it was a psyop or not. The whole thing stunk to high heaven. And then now I'm even more sure. I was 100% sure, but now I'm even more, 110%. The way I would watch Fox News, and you would think that you hadn't won. They would literally repeat the lie, what they'd done, how he'd knocked you out.
Well, here's the deal, too. They also sit there and question the jury. Now, here are people on Fox News who were not there. They have no direct evidence of what was submitted in the trial. The jury and I sat there through the whole thing, and they would dare question the jury's decision when they do not know, they have no hands-on eyewitness evidence of what was submitted in trial.
Wow.
And yet they questioned the jury. They were outraged over the jury's decision. Outraged.
Well, they framed it like Jesse Ventura body slams widow, and nowhere did they ever admit that they have an insurance policy.
Yeah, exactly. And not only that, but in the Justice for Jesse piece on the National Review, she points that out. She said it's a very common thing in litigation when the person being sued dies, it automatically goes to their estate. Especially, like she said, when the estate has profited from the very litigation that you're talking about.
Well, I've studied defamation of public figures, and I've been involved in it a few times myself when I had to sue people and they settled out of court because it was so over the top where they're saying, I'm going to destroy you, I made this up, you've got them. It is extremely hard to do what you did, so you must have put on one hell of a case that the media doesn't want the public to know about. And I've seen major law journals since you won last week saying this is precedent setting. And I'm glad, because I'm sick of people thinking they can just say whatever they want about public figures. I mean,
well, to me, Alex, maybe in the world of law and in defamation and slander it was, I don't know. But I always felt I simplified it, the truth. I had the truth. So they can say that I'm this huge underdog. My belief is, how can the truth be an underdog? How can you possibly be an underdog when you have the truth, the reality of the truth? It never happened.
Sure. Let me ask you this then. We're going to break in 1 minute.
Sure.
Do you think Chris Kyle got drunk that night and did punch somebody out and thought it was you?
Maybe. I don't know. Certainly he was drunk. They all were. All the young SEAL. They had $1,000, and this is back in 2006. They had in court. They had $1,000 that they spent on alcohol that night. Now, how much can you drink for $1,000?
How many of them was it?
How many there? I don't know, 20 maybe.
Yeah, they got fallen down drunk.
You know, but I mean, you're talking they had $1,000 because Chris Kyle was in charge of it. And they had $1,000 that they bought, and you can bet McPartland's an old SEAL. He's going to give them a rate on it. You think they're going to pay full fare? Absolutely not.